Welcome to the tutorial on how national staff can raise their own travel request using the Umoja self-service functionality. Now, as a staff member, you are able to raise any kind of travel type using any mode of transportation through ESS. ESS is the Employee Self-Service. The objective of this tutorial is to review the process to raise a within-mission travel request for a national staff member. If you would like to practice this particular exercise in the training environment, please view the tutorial on how to log into the Umoja training environment. If you need help accessing the Umoja portal, please view the tutorial on how to log into the Umoja portal. Now we have finally logged into Umoja. Keep in mind that for the sake of this tutorial, I am in the training environment, but the screens and the steps that I will follow to raise my travel request are exactly the same as the ones you will follow in production. First step, you will have to click on the tab here called Employee Self-Service. Select this tab and this will change the below section for Employee Self-Service with a set of different links. Just be patient as sometimes the pages take a bit to load. As you see here, the employee services have a number of different icons, and the one we're going to be clicking on to raise our travel request is the following: travel, shipment, and expenses, right here where the icon of the airplane is. We click on the link and the system will take us to our very next page, where we will have to select from the following links as well. You see here, create travel request. The one we're interested in here is the create official travel. So we'll be clicking on the following link to raise our official travel request. The Traveler Work Center should be accessed only to understand the status of your travel request or the travel request you have raised. So let's click on the Create Official Travel link and begin raising our travel request as national staff members. Now the steps I will follow are purely for the sake of this tutorial. So the options I select, the dates, the destinations are purely for the sake of this tutorial so you understand how to raise your own travel request. Now let's fill in first the mandatory fields. First one, travel category. It's already pre-populated as official travel. So now you'll have to select the travel type from the drop-down menu. Remember, for any trip within mission area, please ensure you select the option 12, which is called within mission DFS. We select it here as travel type. Please pay special attention to the travel type selected, as it will have consequences on the type of budget affected. The next field that we are required to fill in is simply a checkbox that we have to click on. You see the check mark has been added, which now confirms my supervisor has agreed to my travel and approved any applicable leave. Flag this checkbox. The national staff member should have their leave request submitted and approved in Umoja before submitting the travel request. Once you have already selected the travel type and clicked on the checkbox, click on the button called General Data to move on to the next step. Now as we move on to the next step, before we move on with our travel request and the steps to build our itinerary in the system, I want you to understand this timeline here on the top, where it says number 1 start, number 2 general data, number 3 additional data, and so on. The one that is highlighted in yellow is the one that indicates at what stage you're at for your travel request. Right now we're on stage 2, as we have already completed stage 1, selecting our travel type and checking the checkbox. Now we're in the general data step. The first thing we'll do is select from the drop-down the traveler type, in this case a staff member. The next step would be to select the journey type from the drop-down. Also, for the sake of this scenario, we're selecting round trip. Very important are also the work start date and time and the work end date and time, all required by the red asterisks. Every time you see a red asterisk on top of a field, it means this field is required and the system will not let you move on until you have filled in those fields. So the first thing we'll fill in here is the work start date and time. What does this mean? This is the date and time the staff member has to report on duty at destination. You can type in the date. For example, I can type it in as such, and also the time, or I can, as you see at the bottom, work end date and time, which represents the date and time the staff member returns to the mission. we can select the date also from the calendar. Simply navigate with the arrows to change the month, or the double arrows here to change the year. So for this case, we're going to select the 4th of May. And 5 o'clock as the end time and 9 o'clock in the morning as the start time. We are also adding a travel purpose. Again, for the sake of this scenario, we are adding review internal project in mission region, just as an example. Now these are the required fields that we have already populated, and the next steps will be to fill in our itinerary details. Now as you see, all the fields here under the itinerary details are mandatory and should all be populated. The departure date. We have already added our date before, but this was only the work start date and time, which could be different to your actual departure date. In this case, they're exactly the same. So we're simply typing in the date and moving on with the departure city and country. Now there are several ways to populate this field. We can start typing in where we want to go, and the system eventually launches a search at the bottom. As you see here, Port-au-Prince, Haiti. You just click on that result and it populates the rest of the field for you. You also select the mode of travel. In this particular scenario, we're selecting the UN vehicle. The arrival date, where we can either type it in or click on the matchbox and select it from our calendar. We can do that. Click on 4 and here you go. So we have the arrival date. Oh, we also have to add our arrival date. In this case, it'll be the same arrival date as the departure date. We can, remember, move with the arrows and select April 30th. Or we can type it in as we did before. The arrival country, we'll also type that in, but in this case, we'll type it in using the matchbox option, so you understand how that works. Now this is simply another search page where you can add the city. For example, here I can add Cap and simply select the Start Search button here. Do not click on OK, as this will prompt a result, and this will give you the search results from this same page without moving on from this page. We click on Start Search, and we have a number of results that we can look through. Luckily, the one we're looking for is the first one. Then you select the line, and once it's highlighted in yellow or orange, you click on OK. And here we go. Our arrival city has already been filled out. The applicable subsistence. The system will auto-calculate the amount payable as applicable subsistence based on the options selected in the drop-down and also the subsistence region selected. For this scenario, we're selecting from the drop-down 1 DSA, which is already there pre-populated. We only have the 2 options, DSA or 2 DSA not payable. So in this case, we're selecting 1 DSA. And we also have to add this subsistence region. Now for this field, you cannot type in the subsistence region. You'll have to select it from the matchbox. The matchbox will offer you a number of regions. The one we are selecting here is the same one we added in our arrival city, R021. Once you have selected it, you click on OK. And now your first line of itinerary details is completely filled in. To save yourself some time, you can click on this button on the right, which is the copy button, copy itinerary line. See, once I click on it, it's going to copy the line completely below, already adding the departure city from where we left off before, the arrival city. Now we do have to change the dates, and we will move on to do so. And this time we will type our dates, 04/05/2018. Move on to our next field, which is correct, and we can keep moving on down the itinerary line. This mode of travel is still correct. Now the arrival date is something we want to change as well, and again we will type in or select from the matchbox the date. The arrival city and country will have to be changed as well. In this case, we'll type it in once again, and the system should return our search here. Very good. We click on it and it fills in automatically. Now the applicable subsistence upon return should always be DSA/MSA not payable. Select that option, and that will eventually default the subsistence region to subsistence not applicable, as it has done in this case. Now that our itinerary is filled, all we have to select is the personal deviation option at the bottom, yes or no. For this specific scenario, we are selecting no. And for our next step, it's only click on additional data to move on to the account assignment. As explained before, you see now our timeline has changed, and now we're at step 3, called additional data. Always whatever step that is highlighted is the step that reflects where you are at in the process. Scroll down till you see the section additional data for travel. And here we'll have a number of fields and also options to select as yes or no. Let's go one by one to see which ones need to be edited and which ones do not. The number of deductions will remain the same for this scenario. It can be used to modify the applicable subsistence rate for any particular day of your travel. Deductions will not be applied in this scenario, so we will leave this one to 0. But so you understand how this would work, we click on Enter Deductions, which takes us to the next page where we would go by day of the week and select from the column whatever is appropriate based on our travel. For this scenario, we'll leave it at 0 and move on to our next field. Our next field is Travel Advance Requested. For the sake of this scenario as well, we will select no. Select whether you would like to request a travel advance or not. However, for the sake of this scenario, we're selecting no. The Travel Processing Office is defaulted by the system and cannot be changed. That's why it is grayed out here. The tickets to be issued through. This field is auto-grayed out based on the mode of travel selected in the itinerary. For the estimated cost, you see it has already been calculated. We do not touch this field either, and we move directly on to the cost assignment field, which will be populated by default. So there's nothing else we need to change in these basic fields here. We just scroll down and ensure that we select an answer to the following mandatory fields. In this scenario, we're just going to select no for each one of these options. Is a voluntary downgrade of entitled class of service requested? No. We'll do the same for the second option. Has authorization to a higher standard of accommodation been granted on exceptional basis? If yes, please attach signed approval form. Number 3, the same thing. We will select no. And then for our last option here, is any other UN traveler taken in conjunction with this travel? You have the option for yes or no. In this particular case, we're going to select no. But you can select yes if you're combining another trip outside a mission area right after. If you do select yes, a new field will load where you can add the type of travel, date, and place. As you can see, if I select yes, a new field prompts, and it says, please indicate the type of travel, date, and place here. For this scenario, we'll simply select no, and the field will disappear. Now, as we have raised our travel request in the past, this field also prompts. This field which asks justification for not submitting the travel request 21 calendar days in advance of the anticipated departure date. Justification for not submitting the travel request 21 calendar days in advance of the anticipated departure date. We're simply going to select late nomination of traveler as an excuse for this scenario. Now all our fields are populated, and we will move on to click on Review and Send. Now that all our fields are populated, we will click on Review and Send to finalize the process of raising our travel request. Click on the button, which takes you to pretty much the last step in this process. As step 4 in our timeline, where it says Review and Send, highlighted here, the system will prompt a summary of your itinerary details. Take some time to review the data that you have populated in the fields like travel start date, travel end date, and your itinerary details, departure date, also the mode of travel, the applicable subsistence. This is key information. Also review the estimated costs and that every other piece of information like cost assignment is correct. Now, once you have reviewed, you simply have to click on the button called Save and Send for approval. Now remember to obtain your medical and security clearances if needed prior to traveling. Your travel request is now available for review by the assigned certifying officers. Now, once you have submitted your travel request for approval, you will have a response by the system letting you know that your travel request was saved and submitted successfully. Your travel request is now available for review by the assigned certifying officers. Also, remember you can check the status by accessing the Traveler Work Center link. Your travel request has now been raised and submitted. Thank you for watching our tutorial, and don't forget to access umoja.un.org/dfs for more information. This site will be of great use for you, as if you do encounter any issues, you can access the link ESS Focal Points to find out who your ESS Focal Points are in your mission, as well as the Umoja Travel LPEs.